Today we're going to go over volumes of prisms and cylinders. So we'll be able to understand what volume is and how to find it. And then also the language objective is to be able to explain how to find volume. So you will need a piece of paper and a pencil to take these notes. I want to go over the basic vocabulary that we're going to use for prisms and cylinders. The first vocabulary term that we're going to see frequently is the vocabulary term prism. So if you see this term, a prism just refers to a shape that has two sides that are parallel. So remember, this word parallel, it means that the sides never touch. So they will never intersect or they will never touch. The next vocabulary word that we're going to see frequently is the base. And when we say base, this is different from when we're talking about area. When we say base with respect to volume, base is always going to refer to a base shape of a prism. So base here refers to a base shape. And then height refers to a distance between two bases. These are the three terms that you should know. Please make sure you take a second to write them down. So this first shape is a square prism. So the base shape here is going to be a square. So take a second and copy that down. Pause the video if you need to. So in a square, the base shape is a square. So the base in this square prism would be this that I'm highlighting in purple. This is the base. Notice this is the base, and then in a prism, the base has to have a parallel side. So the side that's parallel to this is this side up here on the top. So this is your base. So these two bases are parallel. So I'm just going to shade those in. So, and remember, in a square, all the sides are equal. So this is 2.5, and this is 2.5. And then that means if this is 2.5, then this up here is 2.5. And if this is 2.5, then this up here is 2.5. So this is what your prism looks like. The two shapes that I highlighted in purple, those are both squares. They will never intersect. They will never touch each other. They are separated by a height. So the height represents the distance between your two bases. So what's the difference between the bottom base here, so the one with the green dot versus the one with the red dot? So what's the distance between those two bases? Well, that distance is this length here. This is what we call the height. So that I'm highlighting in blue. That is the height of this square prism. So this is the first shape. It's called a square prism. So for prisms, the way we find volume is we identify what the base shape is. So here the base shape is a square. So we write volume equals big B times H. The big B represents area of the base. So I know what the base is. The base in this prism is a square. So my formula, since it's a square, well, I know the formula for the area of a square. The area of a square is volume is base times height, but then I have this extra height here. So this base times height in parentheses. So this base times height right here refers to the area of the base. Go ahead and take a moment and copy this down. The next shape is the rectangular prism. So this is one where you have a rectangle as your base shape. So here I'll identify, here's my rectangle. So if I'm using this as my base, then the side that's parallel to it is the other base. So it's this one up here. So since it's across from it, that's the parallel side. They never cross. So this is, so in a rectangular prism, I have a rectangle as my base. So that is my, those are my bases for this one. And then your height is still the distance between your two bases. So how much space or how much stuff could I fit in between the two bases? So how much space do I have to fit things? So this is what your shipping companies look at. Like how much space can I fill in between the bottom of the box and the top of the box? So that's what they call the height. So your base shape is a rectangle. Remember, your rectangle is going to have a base and a height on its own. So the volume formula for a rectangular prism is volume equals big B times H. And remember, the big B is area of the base. And then the H is the distance between the two bases. So I know my base shape here is a rectangle. And we know how to find area of a rectangle. It's base times height. So the volume, V, equals, the base shape is a rectangle. So I'm going to put base times height. And then I'm also going to multiply by the other height, so the distance between the two bases. So take a second and get this one copied down. If you need to pause the video, go ahead and do that. The next type of prism is a triangular prism. So in a triangular prism, the base is a triangle. So remember, the bases are parallel to each other. It means they're never going to cross. So here's the triangle down here. This is my base of the shape. And then the parallel side is up here. So these triangles are congruent. They would have this, they would be the exact same triangle. The only difference is that they're separated by this height here. So this could be the height. So in a triangular prism, the base shape is a triangle. So remember, so this would be your height, but your triangle is going to have its own height. So like if this was perpendicular to the base, this would be your height in that triangle, and this would be the base of the triangle. So for a triangular prism, the volume formula is the area of the base times the distance between the bases. But remember, the big B means area of the base. So remember, the base refers to the bottom and the top of this figure here. So in this case, it's the triangle. So the area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. And then we're going to multiply this by the big height. So the height that's in between the bases. So now so basically in all these, you should notice that now you have two heights. So you have the height from the base, and then you have the height that separates the two bases. So in the square prism, in the triangular prism, and in the rectangular prism, you have two heights. So pause the video if you need to copy that down. The last shape, the last prism is a cylinder. So the cylinder is one where you have a base shape that's a circle. So here's the base here and here. And then your height is the distance between the two bases. So it's just between here and here. So it's purple is your height. Take a second and copy that down if you need to. The volume formula for a cylinder is volume. Remember, it equals base times height. So where we're using a capital B, this means area of the base. So in this case, the base was a circle. So the area of a circle, so here I'm going to write pi r squared. And I'm going to multiply that by the height. So the distance between the two bases is your height. So that's going to be h. So I hope what you notice as we worked through each, as I showed you each of these, is the volume formula never really changed. We still used, it was all capital B times h. But the capital B means area of the base. So that's the part of the formula that's going to change a little bit depending on what the base shape is that you're working with. So the one last thing I want to point out before I end this is, notice I'm multiplying, let me go to the rectangle for example. Notice I'm multiplying in the rectangle, I'm multiplying a base times a height times another height. So when we worked with area, we had just base times height. So our answer was units squared. Well, now I have another, I'm multiplying by one more of those units. So when we put our final answer in volume, our answer needs to be in units cubed. So I just want us to write that down so that we remember it. So with volume, so for volume, we use units cubed because we're multiplying three side lengths together. So we need to use units cubed for side length, or sorry, for volume. So we use units cubed.